And now for something completely different.
What's going on, YouTube? Well, we have something very different in store today. This is the first time I am checking out a historical story. No music involved. It's not Sabaton, but it's close. If any of you have seen Sabaton's video for The Night Witches, and I also believe No Bullets Fly, both of those videos were created by YarnHub. I guess an animation studio or whatever that makes some pretty kick-ass animation. Well, this video is brought to you by one of my good friends, Freeman Stephenson. He shot me a generous donation. Now, Freeman lives in Iceland. He's been on almost all of my streams. I see him everywhere in the comments. He even popped on one of my streams to show me one of his old books from the 1700s. So go back to that stream and check it out. I think it was from maybe a week ago or something like that. So he made a request for me to check out this story. It's basically called When Germans, Americans, and French Fought on the Same Side. I guess there was an incident that happened close to the end of the war. So check it out. Okay, so I don't really know anything about this. I didn't really research it. I always learn a little bit when I look for the picture that I put up top there. And I guess this took place at Castle, I don't know if you say Iter or Iter or how you say that. So other than that, don't know what to expect, so here we go.
It's early May 1945, the final days of the war. Captain Jack Lee and his men in the 23rd Tank Battalion, 12th Armored Division, are located in the town of Kufstein in the Austrian Tyrol.
Okay, Americans.
Suddenly, around a corner, a Kubelwagen appears. Inside are two Germans, but they're flying a white flag.
And they're in Austria.
The Americans immediately train their M3s at the startled Germans. Many Germans are surrendering as everyone knows the war is all but over, but that doesn't stop many of the SS who are fighting on to the bitter end. Forced out of the Kubelwagen at gunpoint, the decorated German major, Joseph Gangl, is forced to kneel and is searched. But he explains, incredibly, that he is also part of the Austrian resistance against the Nazis. He shows Lee a note written in English. The note explains that Castle Iter has been holding many French politicians and VIPs during the war, who were to be used as bargaining chips. Up to now, their lives have been in relative comfort, but with the war's end, the SS are on their way to terminate them, and the resistance are going to try and foil the murderous plot. A smiling Jack Lee, an adventure lover, sensed the weight of the moment. He rallied his men and told them they're going on a rescue mission. And so began one of the most incredible episodes of the war. The journey to Castle Iter isn't an easy one. They meet up with Gangl's men, German soldiers who are either resistance or think their best bet is to side with the Americans. Having to fight through several SS roadblocks and cross bridges that are too weak for all the tanks, the party that eventually arrives is just one Sherman tank, Lee's Besotten Jenny, 7 American personnel in total, and around a dozen Wehrmacht and resistance men loyal to Gangl. At the castle, they are met by the mainly French prisoners and an SS captain, Kurt Siegfried Schrader, who has brought his family to the castle and, surprisingly, has vowed to defend the French prisoners, even against the SS. The French VIPs, who are expecting a larger contingent of rescuers, were rather unimpressed with the somewhat underwhelming rescue force of one tank, a handful of Americans, and some German soldiers. Knowing many SS are on the way to assault the castle, the Americans, the Wehrmacht, and the SS captain form an unlikely alliance to defend the French VIPs. Many of the French are elderly politicians. Lee tells them to head to the Saale and hide with the women and children. But the belligerent Frenchmen said no and took up arms to form part of the defense force. Schrader told Lee that
so one dude's got a tennis racket. Okay, I don't know how copyright works on these. I should probably pause it so it doesn't get blocked. But okay, so if I'm catching this right, they were holding some French political prisoners who were leading a very cush life in this castle. But now that everything's going to hell, for the Axis side at least, they're just running around executing everybody, right? I mean, kind of the same thing with the folks in the concentration camps, same thing. I mean, they went in and just kind of mopped everything up. And so part of me is wondering, and maybe I missed it, if the two that came and searched out the Americans to come and help, if they weren't already there. Because it seems like the SS officer who was at the prison is also kind of in on the rescue. So this is going to be interesting. So the French are going to fight with cheese and tennis rackets. So here we go.
2 PaK-40 anti-tank guns had been seen moving into position in the woods outside the castle by a group of Waffen SS. Preparing the defenses, Lee ordered that the Besotten Jenny be backed up towards the gatehouse, gun facing outwards. One of the 30 caliber machine guns was removed from Besotten Jenny and placed on the roof of the gatehouse. The 76mm gun was readied with high explosives. It was unlikely that they would be needed to fight against German armor, and explosive shells would work better against infantry in the assault. The friendly Germans wore a strip of dark cloth around their left arms to identify them in the coming battle. The defensive force took positions in various places around the castle. They all knew that if a large party of Waffen SS assaulted Castle Itter, what the inevitable conclusion would be. If the battle went the wrong way before the reinforcements arrived, everyone was to retreat to the central keep and fight hand to hand, medieval style if necessary. Night falls,
Wait.
and some of the men
Did
rest.
that cat put a helmet on? Look at the cat down there.
Medieval style if necessary. Night falls and some of the men rest. Around 4 a.m. an exchange of fire occurs, but after return fire booming from Besotten Jenny's 50 caliber, it's silenced. Around 8 a.m. there's fire from the friendly Germans. One of Gangel's men has decided his loyalties are elsewhere and fled the castle into the nearby woods. This is a disaster. He would of course tell the SS exactly how many men were in the castle and where the weaknesses and defenses were. Lee was also concerned that none of the friendly Germans had actually hit the deserter, which had him questioning the loyalty of his newfound allies. But there was no time to worry about that. Through binoculars, Lee saw the ominous sight of over 100 SS troops arriving in several trucks and melting into the forest to join the siege. Shortly after, an 88mm round slammed into the keep, swiftly followed by 20mm cannon, and the battle restarted. The windows of the castle were shot out, and chunks of masonry fell all around as the assault continued. Back in front of the gatehouse, a huge clang resounded, and Besotten Jenny lurched. The old girl was hit by an anti-tank round, and she was enveloped in fire. The crew escaped and got back inside the gatehouse, just in time before the Sherman's ammunition
their main weapon.
hooked off.
That sucks.
The French VIPs, mainly older men, were calmly ignoring Lee's orders to take cover and decided that they too would join in the melee. Gathering behind the parapets, they covered the south
all over the
side,
place.
enthusiastically firing all the time. One of the men, Paul Reynaud, was an ex-Prime Minister of France. He decided he was best positioned getting in the thick of the fire with the Americans in the gatehouse. To the horror of the Americans and friendly Germans, he was being reckless and exposing himself. Unwilling to lose a French VIP in the battle, Gangel, the German major, saw the danger and jumped up and dashed towards the Frenchman.
He's going to get
A
killed, isn't he?
sniper spotted the opportunity and took the shot. Lee watched as Gangel was fatally hit. The fire from the 88 intensified, and the SS started to press their advantage.
And
One of the
politicians.
prisoners, Jean Barotra, was an ex-tennis player. An athletic man, he was known as the Bounding Basque. Courageously, he stepped forward and told Lee he would vault the wall and go and get reinforcements. Lee knew the danger and that the chances of success were negligible, but he agreed. Disguising himself as an Austrian peasant, Barotra vaulted over the wall and melted into the forest, immediately stumbling upon 2 SS soldiers manning a machine gun. To the absolute astonishment of the SS soldiers, Barotra committed to his disguise and calmly waved, pretended to forage for food, and then relieved himself on a nearby tree. Waving goodbye to the dumbfounded SS, he carried on his way to get help. The battle raged on.
Boy, that's dedication to your character there, huh? Picking some mushrooms.
Founded SS, he carried on his way to get help. The battle raged on. A Waffen SS soldier readied a Panzerfaust, and the entire SS assault force decided that this was the moment to push forward. just as a Sherman, the Bosch Buster, rolled into view along with truckloads of American troops, and Barotra sporting an American uniform. The SS knew their mission to terminate the French VIPs was doomed and retreated back into the forest. Gangl was honored as a national hero for his role in the Austrian resistance after his death. Jack Lee was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. SS Captain Schrader, who had protected the prisoners and helped the defense, was imprisoned for 2 years, a somewhat lesser punishment than he would have otherwise received. The book The Last Battle by Stephen Harding accurately lays out the details of this incredible battle. We hope you like this story. Most of our viewers aren't yet subscribers. Please subscribe and help the channel. Thank you.
Yeah, head on to Yarn Hubs and subscribe. I'll make sure I put the video and their channel in my link here, because I guess they do a bunch of different historical things, not just for Sabaton, obviously, but stuff like this, which is really cool. All right, well, let's wrap that up. Well, Freeman, really interesting. As promised, we had Germans, Americans, and French all fighting together in what could possibly be the last battle of the war. Now, this does bring up something that's come up a few times in some of my Sabaton videos, and it's that even to this day, Germans still get quite the bad rap for all of this. And of course, that's just pure insanity. But a lot of people don't even realize, even back then, of course, not all Germans were Nazis for sure, but even German soldiers who were supposed to fight under Hitler and all of that, there was a good bunch of them who were either doing it because they just simply had to, or in extreme situations like this, were even defecting and all of that because they just knew that it wasn't right. In fact, my wife has an uncle who, I forget what country he was in, but basically it was in the sphere of Nazi control and, was forced to fight. Well, he ended up defecting and walking, I don't know how many dozens of miles to come over and defect to the Allies. So, of course, back then things were a lot more fluid and not so black and white as people would like to think. So, anyways, these are dangerous waters. I'm treading lightly. And now we'll get out of them. But Freeman, thank you very much for that recommendation. Very cool. Now that I know that there's more historical videos to check out besides the Sabaton History channel, I'll be checking these out. If you're new here, you'd be like Freeman, make sure you like, subscribe. You could head over. I have a Patreon. I got a Discord. I got all that good stuff. I can't promise anything incredibly exciting on those channels, but if you want to support my channel in any way, there's at least some ways to do it, and I appreciate it. So hopefully I'll see you soon, but until then, be safe, be healthy, and be nice to each other.